And then you look at other aspects, adding on to Europe's energy problems is the recent retaliation by Russia. I've got a airwave out on what happened with the Crimean Bridge and whatnot. And so Russia did a retaliation to Ukraine, which actually affects Europe. So if you don't know, Ukraine bombed they say it was a truck bomb. People still aren't quite sure what it is. Either way, Ukraine bombed the Crimean Bridge that caused quite a bit of damage. Shut it down for a couple hours. They did manage to get it back open. There's still sections missing from the bridge as well, but they did manage to get it rolling again. But that Crimean Bridge was a specific red line that Russia set. Now, Russia has had, I've lost count how many red lines that they've had, and they haven't changed or retaliated in any way, but apparently this was the one that was a little too far. And it was the red line that Russia set, and it was Medvedev that said if you attack Crimean Bridge, it's going to be Judgment Day, whoever does that. And so Medvedev made that threat. It was going to be Judgment Day. And then like a couple days after the Crimean Bridge happens, Ukraine started just getting smacked with missiles. You're talking about like at least 10 cities were hit in Ukraine. Like 10 or 15 cities were hit. They launched rockets straight into the heart of Kiev, started doing damages there. And the big thing that came from it was their targets were military stuff, but it was also utility infrastructure. That was one of the main targets they were doing. Now, something to keep in mind when it comes to the differences. I'm not even going to attempt to try and pronounce a word because I know I can't say it. But when it comes to the differences between a war and the special military operation that Russia is calling this, a lot of it has to do with infrastructure. If you're doing a war, if you're going into to seize an entire country, you're going into literally have a war with somebody, the first thing you're going to cut is the power. Well, they haven't done that. They have not been attacking the power. They haven't been attacking the energy infrastructure. They've kept the lights on over there. They've kept the water running over there. All this stuff, they've kept it going. So anybody who says that this is a war, they're dead wrong. This is not a war. I would say it's a proxy war, but it's not a war like in the sense that people are saying that it is. But this is what Russia has said all along. It's a special military operation. But now they started attacking the energy infrastructure where cities are just getting blacked out. They are losing running water, all of this stuff. And how this affects things is Ukraine actually sends electricity into Europe. They produce a bunch of electricity and they send it into Europe. Well, because of the attacks on the infrastructure, Ukraine had to immediately suspend all energy imports into Europe. So this looks like while Ukraine is getting hit, this actually looks like another attack on Europe, on the West, on NATO, which if you look at all the things that have been happening, this has been an economic attack on the West. This has been an attack on the NATO members to get them to crack and go against each other. And it's a way to just bring down Europe and everything. So this is where the proxy stuff comes in. You've got NATO, specifically the United States, feeding money and military stuff into Ukraine to keep this fight going against Russia, who their opponent is really knocking down Europe and cracking NATO. And so the they're just using Ukraine to do it. Now, they've already gained pretty much all of the territory that they said they wanted to gain from Ukraine. That's where the annexation referendums and all that stuff came in. They've pretty much got, the only thing left that they want to do is they want to get Odessa, because that'll cut Ukraine off from the ocean there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens soon. but it's a proxy war. So you're feeding Ukraine with a bunch of military stuff to keep this going, and Ukraine is attacking NATO and Europe and the US through Ukraine. So that's what's going on. So this is a special military operation. It's getting interesting. And so now they've cut off the electricity stuff into Europe. Something else to keep in mind, some of the things that have come out of this war to just kind of round this off here. You've got a top general who was just recently elevated. His name is Sergei Surovikin. It's the best I got. I don't speak Italian. And he was elevated as the top general for this now. He comes from, he was the general of the, Sergei was the commander of the Russian military in Syria in 2017, where he was accused of quite a few controversial tactics against the government and the people in the area. And so they elevated this dude to basically take over the special military operation right now. And they gave him the green light for all weapons, excluding nuclear, of course. So they brought in a guy who used controversial tactics at the same time the Crimean Bridge was attacked. Something tells me he was the one that said you need to take out the infrastructure, the energy infrastructure. Also, something else to note, Russia did send 20,000 new soldiers into Belarus, and to basically combined with the Belarus military, and they're going to sit on the border. Lukashenko announced this. President Lukashenko announced this and said this is a defensive move. They're not actually planning to go in. Yeah, there's always reports that Belarus is moving their stuff to the border and nothing ever happens. So I wouldn't be surprised if nothing came of that. Or they're preparing for something else. Who knows? It kind of seems like with some of the events going on, Nord Stream and the bridge and this new general and whatnot, it seems like things are kind of moving in a different direction, especially since now they attacked the utility infrastructure. So maybe they're planning on doing something big. Who knows? We just got to watch and see what's going on. Now, also coming from Russia is a cooperation plan to reduce OPEC oil, which is basically a giant slap in the face to the United States. OPEC decided to cut 2 million barrels per day. This excludes Libya. So this excludes Libya. This is based, so this isn't just, we're just going to not produce 2 million barrels per day. That's not how this works. This is based on fixed numbers of production that they've already had going. And so what that means is they're not going to elevate above those numbers that they've set. So this will actually be just a little bit less than 1 million barrels per day that will get knocked out so far. So I'm not going to get into trying to explain how all that works. This was actually a subject that I had to go in and study and figure it out, and then I forgot half of it 5 minutes later. But that's how that works. So it's not just we're just going to stop 2 million barrels of oil per day. No, it's based on fixed numbers and whatnot. We're not going to get into that. So, but right now it has cut just a little under 1 million barrels per day. Now, this is basically because of a new cooperation. I wouldn't say new, but of a elevated, I guess, cooperation between the Saudis and Russia. This is more proxy war on the West, basically. If you know, this was Biden went over to the Saudis and was trying to work a deal. And then when Biden left, the Saudis basically turned around and said, we're not going to do anything that you said. Well, they've established a relationship with Russia, and it's going quite swimmingly, according to this. So there's definitely a giant crack going between Saudi and the U.S. as far as this goes, and this is going to have an effect on oil.